All right, we're recording, so here we go. All set. So thank you, everyone, for joining in this evening. So got a couple. We're gonna do a. We got fewer questions, but probably gonna go a little deeper on a few of these questions, as Scott and I were talking about earlier. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Big lot of talk to start off on cortisol. So Scott, we got a question here from Sherry. I have a friend who's very big into cortisol drinks at the moment, claims they give her so much more energy. What's the truth? Oh, muting. There we go. What's the truth behind that claim, and are they safe? Let's start. We got some other questions here, but let's start with that. So,
Yeah. So we'll start with square one and just explain what cortisol is. I think most people have a general idea of what it is and kind of what it does, but maybe just this preconceived notion that it's bad. That's typically just what people associate with cortisol. So starting from the top, what is it? Cortisol is just a stress hormone produced by the adrenal glands. It affects really every part of the body. It's not bad. It's just a stress hormone is really all it is, despite all the negative press that it gets. So cortisol, cortisol levels vary throughout the day, and typically they are really high when you wake up, and then they drop as you kind of go about your day. So really high, 6, 8 in the morning, and then they kind of drop down, and they're lowest when you're sleeping. Um, but when levels remain too high for too long in a chronic state, that's really where issues start to kind of form. And the reason that would happen is most often just due to stress. So what does cortisol do? It really plays key roles in regulating three main things: metabolism, blood sugar, and then blood pressure. So, for example, cortisol causes a release of glucose from your liver, so blood sugar rises. This provides fast energy during times of stress. So, super important, but not so great if you're just stressed out and sitting all day, essentially. But it is very important. And cortisol triggers your pancreas to decrease insulin and increase the hormone glucagon. And so, as a recap, insulin lowers blood sugar, glucagon raises it. So, again, if you're in a really high stress environment, chronically, long term, and you're having really high sustained levels of cortisol, it's going to raise the blood sugar, which can ultimately lead to other conditions like diabetes and many other things. But in short spurts, cortisol can boost your immunity by limiting inflammation. So it is really helpful. But if you have consistently high levels of cortisol, again, your body gets used to it. And this can lead to inflammation and a weakened immune system over time. So now we know really what it is and what it does, a little bit about what it does, what causes it to increase. So, really, one of the best ways at keeping your cortisol just within a normal range, again, it's going to vary throughout the day, but just one of the best things you can do is just maintaining an even keel blood sugar. So, avoiding those really high peaks and those really low valleys. Just uh, so basically, good healthy diet, exercising on a regular basis, and then other good just stress management techniques. Um, so what happens when it's chronically high? We hit on this a little bit already, but it can lead to weight gain, trouble concentrating, fatigue, sleep problems, depression, even diabetes, inflammation. So a lot of things that many people experience, and it's which it definitely, cortisol can be the cause, but it's also really easy to point the finger at something and blame it on something else. Um, but again, it just comes down to just realizing if you are in a really high stress environment, what are some really basic things that you could do to help, manage the and just regulate the cortisone levels. And it's just sunshine, activity, good healthy exercise, good nutrition, keeping it really basic. The cortisol cocktails from the question, um, they really, as far as like side effects, most of them are pretty safe. Um, do they have a major impact on cortisol? Jury's still out on that one. But essentially, what they are, they've gained a lot of popularity for their supposed ability to manage stress and improve energy levels. The big idea being they are supposedly, they allow the adrenal glands to kind of replenish and restore themselves. But a look at some common ingredients, typically orange juice. So getting some vitamin C in there. Coconut water is really common. Good source of electrolytes, also hydration, a lot of potassium, salt. So increasing hydration also with a little bit of sodium. Cream of tartar is actually pretty common, but it's a good source of potassium. And then adaptogens. And if you haven't heard of adaptogens, they're becoming more and more popular. Really, all they are various compounds and herbs that are purported to enhance the body's resilience to stress. Um, they've been around for a long, long time. A lot of like Eastern medicine, India, Chinese medicine, that kind of stuff. Um, two of the most common adaptogens that you'll see in some of these cocktails are ashwagandha, which has gotten a lot of attention recently, and then rhodiola. Some believe that these can help the body handle stress, but taking a quick look at each of those two, ashwagandha is also known as Indian ginseng. um, a lot of the studies are on rodents, and there's not a whole lot of good sound studies on humans yet. So again, so a lot of these are claims, not saying that it's not effective, but it's touted to have a wide range of health benefits, ranging from a reduction in cortisol, improving sleep, both time and sleep duration. They're pretty safe overall, or it's pretty safe overall. Studies show a negative or potentially harmful side effect in really, really large doses, doses that are much higher than what you're going to see in most cocktails, or if you're buying this online, as long as you're not going totally crazy, you're going to be fine. The one thing I did find is it has been shown to cause liver toxicity. Again, also in really, really high doses. But even at a regular dose, if you're somebody that does have some kind of underlying liver issue, probably just steer clear. The other one, rhodiola, it's another medicinal plant and herb. Um, so it's traditionally been used as an anti-fatigue agent. Its claims basically the same stress-reducing effects, as well as an antidepressant, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant properties. The mechanisms behind its ability to reduce stress aren't really well understood, and they're kind of complex. There's not a whole lot of research on it, but it has been shown to blunt cortisol release under stressful conditions. Um, Also generally safe in moderate doses with little to no side effects. But again, more research is kind of needed. So while some people are just kind of looking for the quick fix as far as these drinks and reducing cortisol, managing stress and everything, they can help balance hormones and boost energy, but the scientific evidence supporting those claims aren't really there yet. But again, they're relatively safe. Probably a better use for these would be just viewing them as fun, tasty ways to get more hydration in, especially in the summer months. If you just get really bored of drinking water, um, go ahead, whip up one of these, and they're generally safe. But again, you know, should you do it? It's not going to be a magic cure, but there are a lot of claims around it. So it could definitely help.
All right, so let's unpack that a little bit. So first of all, going back to cortisol, you were saying, like most things, there's too much of a good thing. Like it can, it does have some benefits, but when it goes too far, that's when the real drawbacks and side effects start to occur. As far as the cortisol cocktails, and like the potential impact on the liver. So definitely, you're saying don't have a six pack a day. So that would probably be go a little bit too far. And it sounds like we've talked about this before with other supplements, and just kind of the idea that like a supplement is just that. It's typically a supplement for the basics. And while for most people, you said if assuming that there's no liver issues, probably nothing wrong with it to mix things up, get a little different flavor. However, that's not going to be a replacement for getting decent sleep, being active, working out, managing your stress, and doing all the fundamentals that we really promote people to do. So, not going to change your life overnight, although they may, like you said, may add a little bit more in regards to hydration, or may help with hydration, and then also just from to give you something else to enjoy more fluids, and then also, like I said, may help a little, but research is still it's too early to tell. That sound about right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right.
They've all been around for a long time, but
Mhm.
kind of newer to, the States.
Okay. All right. So on a slightly different topic, but kind of sticking on the theme of drinks, what about mushroom coffee? That was a question we got. Are those good and or what's the good and bad about those? What can you tell us about it? What are some common ingredients? Tell us a little bit about like the research that you've looked into, pros and cons. Just give us a rundown on mushroom coffee.
Yeah. So a lot of the claims really revolve around supporting the immunity, natural energy, sharpness, mental clarity, that kind of stuff. Common brands you'll see, I know I get targeted for these a lot, but Rise, Mudwater, Everyday Dose, there's many, many others. Those are probably the three most that I see in advertising. They all have pretty similar ingredients, again, being mushrooms. So the most common are turkey tail, reishi, lion's mane, cordyceps, and then chaga. Um, these all, again, have been around for a long, long time. Obviously, they're mushrooms, but people have been taking them for a very long time in Eastern medicine. Turkey tail benefits include an enhanced immune system, potential cancer prevention properties. Reishi, it's also a potent immune system regulator, pretty promising anti-cancer agent as well as stress reducer. Lion's mane appears to have some neuroprotective qualities. It's also a really good antioxidant. Cordyceps, touted to be anti-aging, which is just a really, really vague claim that I'm not really sure exactly what that means. But it hasn't really been evaluated that well in human trials. Chaga uh, has supposed beneficial effects on the immune system and also cancer risk. So kind of a revolving theme around um, cancer risk, inflammation, um, antioxidants, but the mental clarity aspect is just a little bit harder, and I feel like that's more of what the ads are kind of going for a lot of people. Um, they all contain really, really promising evidence. However, the majority of studies are limited to in vitro or animal rodent studies, but they are generally safe. Um, Not all that expensive. Monthly cost somewhere probably 25, $30. So not a huge cost. Side effects, not hardly really any to note. So safe. But again, there's not really a whole lot of studies that are really saying, everybody should be doing this. These are awesome. It's just a lot of really, really good marketing. That being said, if you're curious about them, try them out and just kind of see what you think. But generally safe.
So with both of these products, or both of these, whether it's cortisol cocktails or talking about mushroom coffee, either way, you're saying generally safe. If you want to try it, like that's okay, but don't get your hopes too high as far as this just completely changing your life. There's probably not going to happen, and and we also do have to just factor in the placebo effect. So maybe they would help, but you're saying that no harm, but again, not the evidence as far as the research, it's still to be determined.
Yeah. And the other thing to note too that I kind of came across, I was looking at some of these brands, reading the nutrition labels. Um, a lot of these mushrooms in the ingredients, as far as the listed amounts that they have of each different variety, some of them were pretty low and well below the limit where you start to see some benefit from. So some of these they're putting in there as just a way to say that it's in there and not
Mm,
necessarily in a high enough amount to really get the full effect from the limited research and what it does show.
got it. So goes back to marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. We just got a question in the comments, kind of on the topic of drinks. But do drinks like Gatorade, do drinks like Gatorade, are they good for you compared to like coconut water or fruit juice? And specifically like after a workout. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So they are great. I would kind of break this down into the regular varieties and then the sugar-free varieties. If you are outside sweating a ton, being really, really physically active, and you're burning a lot of calories, the sugar is going to be beneficial. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to lead to any weight gain or fat gain. Um, However, a lot of people just drink them just to stay hydrated, and they're not really doing a whole lot. So in those circumstances, I would go for something really low in sugar or a sugar-free variety. And this kind of goes back to the we talked a couple of sessions back on like kind of hitting on glycogen, the way that your
Mhm.
body utilizes carbohydrates during intense activity. So again, if you are being really physically active and burning a lot of calories, strength training, playing sports outside, the heart rate's getting really elevated for extended periods of time, that sugar is going to be really beneficial in helping you perform whatever task you're doing or working out, and also recovery, repairing everything, all the damaged tissues. But if you're not really doing those things, stick to the sugar-free varieties for sure.
Got it. So hopefully that provides a little bit of insight. I know when we talked before, uh, during one of our last sessions, we've talked about how, your body's more likely to utilize those sugars and carbs immediately after a workout. So if you're, doing an extremely intense workout, storing the sugar from Gatorade right after a workout, probably not something to worry about. However, to reiterate what you said, um, to have them just to have them because it tastes good on an ongoing basis, that sugar is going to add up pretty quickly. So you might want to opt for the sugar-free variety. Sound accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Next question we've got. Let's talk about BCAAs. So branch chain amino acids. What are they? Should I take them? Should I not take them? Fill us in there. What do you got? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So this is one that I've had a lot of questions on in the gym recently. We do sell them. So basically, what are they? BCAAs, they're branch chain amino acids, and it's essentially just three of the essential amino acids. So amino acids that your body can't produce, you need to get them from your diet. Those three, not that you really need to know these, but leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Um, Really, the main benefit of BCAAs is their ability to enhance muscle growth and alleviate some muscle fatigue, so a little bit less soreness. Studies show that supplementing with BCAAs alone is not really that effective in increasing protein synthesis. But all essential amino acids need to be present for that process to occur. If you're taking these along with a meal after a workout, so a meal where you're getting other really good protein sources from the meal, there is a definite benefit um, in reducing muscle soreness. So again, there's a lot of marketing. These have been around for a long time. They're generally really, really safe. Side effects very limited, if any. Um, Really, though, the marketing has been they're awesome. They help muscle growth and all this stuff, but the main what the literature actually shows is that they mainly just reduce soreness. So should you take them? Again, they're not all that expensive at all. As long as you're getting enough protein and a good varied sources of protein in the diet. Um, do you need them? No. But if you are someone who's starting a workout routine, you haven't been doing it in a while, if you're brand new to it and you're getting really sore, it's almost like a multivitamin where it's definitely not going to hurt anything. It's probably going to help, and it's definitely going to help reduce muscle soreness. But at the end of the day, do you really have to have them? No, but they can absolutely help.
Okay, that's great. Got another comment here in the or a question in the comments. Should you eat before a workout? And then to kind of go beyond that, what kinds of foods would you recommend, and how close to your workout? And then how long do you wait after a workout to eat? So
Yeah,
let's start with pre-workout. Should you eat before a workout? What kinds of foods? And what about timing? Let's start there.
yeah. So I would first say do both, eat before and after. Pre-workout, really, if you're looking at what you're trying to achieve in having a meal or a snack before you work out, it's simply making sure that your blood sugar isn't really low going into the workout. Um, really trying to get ahead of it to make sure that it doesn't crash 20 minutes into the workout, getting, nauseous, dizziness, that kind of stuff. So getting a good effective workout and allowing yourself to really get a good thorough workout and push yourself. Um, what should you eat and uh, the timing is going to be dependent on what you're eating. So before you work out, try to keep it just kind of light, nothing that's going to hang out in your stomach and really fill you up necessarily. So it doesn't have to have a lot of fiber. It doesn't have to be a full meal. What you're kind of looking for is maybe about 30 grams of carbs or so. Again, just enough to get the blood sugar up a little bit. Carbohydrates before you work out are going to be more beneficial than having protein. Not that protein isn't important, but is in terms of uh, getting enough calories and being able to push yourself during the workout, carbohydrates are going to be a little bit better. And you don't need a ton. So this could be, let's say, an example in the morning before a workout, um, piece of toast with some jelly on it, a piece of fruit, some yogurt, berries. Again, something about 30 grams of carbs or so to make sure that you're good to go for the workout.
Okay. All right. And then now let's talk about after.
Yeah. So after you work out, you finished, you've, fuel before the workout, and you were able to hopefully push yourself pretty hard. The goal then shifts to repair. So during the workout, you're kind of breaking down your muscle tissue and you need to start the recovery process as quickly as possible. So that's where protein's going to have a lot bigger of a role. So protein and carbs after you work out is going to be really beneficial. Um, as far as amounts, let's say at least 20, 30 grams protein, somewhere in that range. And that's, I think, really attainable for a lot of people. If you're heading off to work, protein shake, it's gonna put you right in that 20 to 30 grams of protein range. It doesn't have to be a shake though. As far as carbohydrates go, again, this really is dependent on how much muscle mass you have, how many calories you really need throughout the day, and what the actual workout entailed. Meaning, did you really push yourself to an extreme level and depleted a lot of your carbohydrate stores that you have in your muscles? If that's the case, you can get away with eating a lot more carbohydrates. If you're kind of new to working out, maybe, inside the first year or so, and it's more just a little bit slower pace, if you don't have a ton of muscle starting out, you really don't need all that much. But anywhere from 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates, somebody who has a lot more muscle and is pushing themselves a lot harder could easily get away with, 80, 100 plus grams of carbohydrates. But definitely protein and carbs there. The the key thing to remember though is that you want to try to start the recovery process as quickly as possible. Any foods that have a lot of fat and also a lot of fiber are just going to sit in your stomach a lot longer, and it's going to take your body a lot longer to really be able to utilize those nutrients. So keeping it low fat, low fiber, which is generally, fiber is an awesome thing. We always say get enough fiber, but right after the workout, you just want your body to be able to process that and use it as quickly as possible to manage soreness, hopefully build some muscle, and then get you hopefully not too sore the next day as well.
So meal timing after, sooner the better. Uh, as far as, we think of fiber as a very good thing, which it definitely is. However, immediately after your workout, that might be the one exception to the rule, where it's like probably not in your best interest in terms of speeding up the recovery process. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. And if
Okay.
you are someone who's leaving the gym, got to get ready for work, or let's say you're leaving the gym in the afternoon and you have dinner plans or whatever, if if there's, let's say, more than like a 90-minute window between the end of your workout and your next opportunity to actually have a real meal, go for a shake. It's not really going to fill you up that much. It's going to be quick. You essentially just don't want to wait too long. So getting something definitely within like 60 minutes or so after the workout is going to be much more beneficial.
Okay, so if it's going to be more than an hour, if it's going to be more than an hour and a half till you eat after your workout, you definitely a protein shake, or you need to have some sort of snack or something. You need to have a plan in place to, you know, compensate for that, or to so that you're not waiting 90 minutes. Sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If anyone has any other questions, you can go ahead and throw them out there. Feel free to ask now, post them in the comments, and I'll share them with Scott. Um, anyone got anything they want to add? I'll give you one more minute, and if in case someone's typing something, and while we're doing that, two announcements I wanted to share. We have a 5 week spring into summer challenge starting on Monday. I've mentioned this now because it's really covering four pillars: movement, but more importantly, as it kind of relates to this topic, we're talking a lot about nutrition, forming habits, and stress management, which piggybacks right along with cortisol and just nutrition. They go hand in hand. And so we've got the challenge kicking off on Monday. If you haven't signed up, we would highly recommend it. It doesn't cost anything. We're going to have fun. It's going to be educational. We've got little kind of bite-sized information to share pretty much every day. So 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We'll be sharing just like little short lessons, 2 to 3 minutes long. So, and also feel free to invite your friends, your spouse, coworkers, neighbors, dog, anyone that you want to bring along with you. So it's again, we're gonna have fun, but really trying to break down the education to bite-sized pieces. And then also, we'll be doing this again. Our next session is on Tuesday, May 6th at 6 p.m. So, Scott, anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No, just thank you all and keep the questions coming.
All right. Yes. Thank you all